evening and welcome to Canal Algérie's nightly news. On to the headlines. Chaired by Algeria, the UN Security Council holds a high-level meeting devoted to cooperation with the Arab League, and the foreign minister reiterates Algeria's commitment to promote partnership and defend the fair causes. Pursuant to the decision of the President of the Republic, the Interior Minister installs the Governor of Bashar and stresses the necessity to ensure a solid local development. And our history window sheds light on the racist aspect of the French colonialism via the Museum of Mankind, housing skulls of African and Asian resistance. Welcome back. First off, tasked by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, chaired a high-level meeting on cooperation between the United Nations and the Arab League with the aim of examining immediate and long-term strategies and mechanisms to tackle regional challenges and coordinate efforts to overcome the various crises in the Arab region. In a speech on the occasion, Attaf reaffirmed that Algeria supports all means to promote relations between the Arab League and the United Nations, noting that Algeria spares no effort since joining the Security Council to speak on the situation of the Arab countries. As for the Secretary General of the Arab League, Ahmed Abul Ghait, praised the initiative of Algeria to hold the important session in the Security Council to promote the relationship between the two bodies, namely the Arab League and the United Nations. In related news, the Security Council is holding now a meeting upon the request of Algeria and Russia on the situation of children in Gaza who were the most vulnerable and severely affected by the devastating aggression launched by the Zionist entity. The Foreign Affairs Minister Ahmed Attaf held bilateral meetings with the Minister of Exterior Relations of the Republic of Colombia on the state and perspectives of the friendship and cooperation relations between the two countries, reaffirming the commitment of Algeria to support the efforts of the implementation of the peace accord for 2026 in Colombia. Attaf also held a meeting with the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Panama on a set of issues related to the bilateral relations at the UN Security Council. In his capacity as a special envoy of the President of the Republic, the Minister of Communication was received this Thursday in Windhoek by the President of the Republic of Namibia, Ngolo Mumba. Mohamed Mazian delivered to the Namibian President a letter by President Tebboune in which he addressed his sincere brotherly greetings, expressing his willingness to reinforce cooperation and partnership between both countries. Ways and means to further promote the exceptional relations were also reviewed in addition to priority issues at the level of the African Union. For his part, the Minister of Health, Abdelhak Saihi, in his capacity as a special envoy of the President of the Republic, was received by the President of Comoros, Azali Assoumani, to whom he delivered a written message by his brother, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune. The meeting was an opportunity to review the brotherly and cooperation links within both countries and to promote them to a higher level to better serve both countries' interests, notably in terms of promoting training programs for Comoran students in Algeria. In other developments, the National Independent Authority for Elections, ANI, announced that the operation to withdraw the candidacy declaration forms for members of the People's Assemblies of the provincial and municipal councils wishing to be candidates in the elections for the renewal of half of the members of the Council of the Nation has begun this Thursday. The authorities specified that the deadline for submitting the candidacy declaration forms has been set for Sunday, February 16th at midnight. And pursuant to the instructions of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Minister of Interior, Local Collectivities and Territory Planning, Brahim Merad, chaired the installation ceremony of Mohammed bin Youssef in his capacity as the new wali or governor of Bashar. The ceremony took place in the presence of local elect and executives of the province. The Interior Minister highlighted the importance of this province and stressed the necessity to spearhead the global development while granting a paramount importance to the daily concerns of the local population. And in a plenary session devoted to approving bills, the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Saleh Goujil, denounced the aggressive campaign being launched in Algeria, led by far-right extremists in the French government, reaffirming that Algeria has no hostility with peoples, but Algeria rejects all forms of occupation. Coming up in our news edition. Algiers is living to the rhythm of the hot derby, bringing USM Algiers to Mouloudia of Algiers as part of the National Football Championship. The Secretary of State for the National Community Abroad has embarked on a 3-day working visit to Italy, aiming at strengthening ties with the Algerian diaspora and discussing the government's measures to support them. The visit began in Naples, where he engaged with community members in a discussion held by the Consulate General. More details with Melissa Lila Balaman.
It is both an exchange of emotions and pragmatism that was organized by the Consul General of Algeria in Naples between the Secretary of State in charge of the national community established abroad and the members of the Algerian diaspora in the city. An unprecedented choice and a first visit to Europe, marking the importance of the links between Algeria and its nationals, but also with this welcoming country. My visit to Italy is a part of a series of intense bilateral exchanges taking place in January. This move is closely tied to the traditional bond of friendship and cooperation between Algeria and Italy. During this meeting, concrete questions have been raised: the equivalence of diplomas, the improvement of transport conditions to Algeria, as well as the establishment of welcoming facilities allowing families to spend their holidays in Algeria. Daily concerns, of course, but also a desire to strengthen relations with the country. The consulate issues biometric cards and even passports all the way to Sicily and Calabria. It was something we dreamed of. The aspirations of the community here align with the Secretary of State. We hope for the best, always.
إن شاء الله خير إن شاء الله نتفائلوا بالخير دائما نتفائلوا بالخير. كان يعني أول فريق من نوعه.
This is the first time the Secretary of State visits us. It was a meeting with the youth and all the residents in Italy. We discussed important issues related to the work of the Algerian diaspora.
المقيمين في إيطاليا هنايا وطرحوا لمواضيع هامة جدا منها انشغالات الجزائري المقيم في إيطاليا في نابولي هنا. وأتمنى نحل مشكل السفر إن شاء الله.
For his part, the Secretary of State displayed a great deal of attention, promising to forward the files to the relevant authorities, while also taking the opportunity to announce a series of measures. I made sure to reiterate the clear commitment of the President of the Republic to integrate the national community abroad as an essential component of the national economic renewal effort. These efforts have been greatly appreciated by our community members here in Naples, both in terms of facilitating and simplifying administrative and consular procedures and in encouraging our community to participate in investment efforts in our country. Earlier this morning, the Secretary of State visited the premises of the Consul General of Algeria in Naples, which was inaugurated 2 years ago and is the last Algerian consulate opened in Europe. A strategic presence that reflects Algeria's commitments to its nationals. This marks the first step in consolidating dialogue with the Algerian diaspora in Italy.
As a macabre time machine, the Musée de l'Homme, or the Museum of Mankind, houses thousands of skulls and human remains belonging to African and Asian fighters that date back to the 19th century, notably those of Algerian resistance fighters during the Zaacha battle, a time machine that guarantees to take you back to the racist and discriminatory aspect of the French colonialism. More details with Melissa Lila Balaman.
In the French capital, which claims to uphold human rights and the principles of justice, fraternity and equality, lies the very embodiment of the violation of human dignity. The Musée de l'Homme in Paris illustrates a cemetery of horror and humiliation. Here, thousands of skulls of African and Asian fighters killed during the wars of the 19th century are displayed like war trophies. A witness to the barbarity of colonial France, the museum also houses hundreds of skulls belonging to the fierce Algerian resistance fighters who stood up to the French occupiers, particularly the Zaacha, which remain etched in history. This museum of horrors contains approximately 25,000 human remains collected by the French troops during the colonial era under horrifically degrading conditions, treating those who resisted the occupation as subhumans. These barbaric practices were common among the French colonizers, who felt a twisted satisfaction in beheading anti-colonial fighters and displaying their heads in this museum, a place that symbolizes a dark period in colonial history and the history of humanity as a whole. It was an era where the human sciences were manipulated to justify racist theories and inhuman practices. If this museum embodies the hideous face of the colonial France, it also sheds light on the crimes against humanity and war crimes committed by France in Algeria during the 132 years of occupation, marked by massacres, suffocations, or les enfumades, and nuclear explosions, all driven by an ideology of ethnic cleansing. Its sole objective was to replace indigenous populations with foreign settlers. This museum bears witness to the inhumane practices of colonial France, going against its usual speech and the humanist values it has always claimed to defend.
And in modern France, the government is using migrants as a scapegoat for its major failure in dealing with the current multidimensional crisis threatening the French Republic. More insights with Selim Mirah.
The rooster, which stands for the power and pride of France, is no longer conveying the same message, since the country is exacerbated by a domestic crisis, threatening not only the national economy but identity and cohesion of society. With growing debt, a sluggish economy and a mounting unemployment, the government is now unable to deal with inflation, a real and heavy burden on citizens. In fact, streets have become the ideal venue for people to voice their discontent and anger by a series of demonstrations and protest movements denouncing the precarious living conditions and the decline of the purchasing power. To this effect, numerous African nationals living in France and elsewhere are raising questions about the running of the French government, heavily exploiting Africa's national resources without contributing in the continent's development and progress. Faced with this severe situation, the French political elite is using migrants, notably Arabs and Africans, as a scapegoat for their failure. An alibi that's proved to be unsuccessful, since it is worsening the situation and sparking more tensions that threaten the French Republic.
On to the operational report of the People's National Army's activity in the past week. 2 terrorists, Malouki Hosni, known as Hamza, and Malouki Ahmed, known as Yahya, surrendered to the military authorities, Borj Mukhtar, and 15 support elements. The terrorist groups were arrested in separate operations across the national territory. The terrorists were in possession of 2 Kalashnikov submachine guns, a quantity of ammunition, and other items. In the framework of the fight against organized crime, the continuation of the tireless efforts aimed at countering the scourge of drug trafficking in our country, combined detachments of the PNA intercepted in coordination with the different security services in operations across the military regions 76 drug traffickers and averted attempts to introduce 109 kilograms of processed kief through the borders with Morocco, while over 387,000 psychotropic tablets were seized and 1.60 kilograms of cocaine were also seized during separate operations. In Tamrat, Borj Mukhtar, and Ilizi and Ingizam, detachments of the People's National Army arrested 256 individuals and seized 32 vehicles, 264 generators, 205 jackhammers, 7 metal detectors, as well as quantities of mixture of raw gold and stones, explosives, detonation tools, and other equipment used in illegal gold mining operations. Similarly, border guards ordered at the level of our national coasts attempts at illegal immigration proceeded to save 127 individuals aboard traditionally made boats, while 455 illegal immigrants of different nationalities were arrested across the national territory. End communique. Sports now. Algiers is living to the rhythm of the big game tomorrow between USM Algiers and Mouloudia of Algiers. A match that takes place while the two prestigious teams of the capital are doing well both at the national and continental levels. More details with our sports reporter Selim Mirah.
qualifiers will be revisited this Friday on the 5th of July Olympic Stadium here in Algiers, and the big game between USM Algiers and Mouloudi of Algiers, hot derby between the capital's two prestigious teams. Both teams are being coached by two Tunisian managers, namely Khaled Ben Yahya and Nabil Ma'loul, a fact that turns the match into a real tactical battle between the two sides. Ranked fifth in the overall standing of the national championship, USM Algiers will try to win and progress to a better position, while Mouloudi of Algiers, highly motivated by the qualification to the African Champions League contest, will endeavour to prove its comeback both at the national and continental level. Football lovers will be for sure delighted by this promising match, hoping that fair play will run before, during and after the game.
That was all for tonight. Thank you for watching. Take care.